She had a near-death experience, and it led her to her God-given path. I can't wait to share the story of our guest, Angela Goodman. But before we proceed, I want to always thank our sponsor, Black Aswad Coffee, for allowing us to bring these stories to light so that we may help others who maybe have been through a difficult time that then will turn into their divine destined path of passion and purpose. Black Aswad Coffee is the one coffee brand that benefits nonprofits throughout the globe that support the mental health industry. With every sip, with every ounce, someone's getting some help. And if you have a mental health organization that you are passionate about and you want to partner with Black Oswald Coffee, not only can you just go on their website and just buy the delicious coffee, you can start your own fundraiser too. But without further ado, here is our guest, Angela Goodman. And Angela, I just want you to share your story. I will prompt with follow-up questions and we'll go from there.
Okay, sounds good. Marta, thank you so much for having me on today.
Thanks
first
for
of
being
all.
Here.
Yeah, and I am grateful to Black Oswald as well, because my family and members of my family have struggled with mental health and addiction over the course of my lifetime. So important the work that they're doing. Yeah.
Not good that they struggled, but good that this is a cause near and dear to your heart and that you're here
today. Yeah, absolutely. In my own journey, at the age of 32, I found myself pregnant with my second daughter. Beautiful time in my life. Her father and I had been, pretty quick to conceive, and knew that this baby who was going to come into the world was going to be like the love child. We just knew it. And she was born in October of 2010. And with her birth, it was beautiful. No complications, no issues at all with her birth. And about 4 days later, I found myself unable to actually walk. And yeah, it was a tough time. I am very much a go-getter. I had been in the corporate universe for 15 or 16 years by that point in time, consistently performing at work, and had literally worked up until the day I gave birth. It was just kind of my mentality. And at the moment that I started to have complications after the pregnancy, I was like, wow, I don't know how to handle this. My body is not in a place where I'm used to. I was going through a lot of pain. I would pick my foot up off the ground and literally feel like stabbing sensations in my abdomen. And I knew that something wasn't right. And of course, I had a 4-day-old newborn that I'm trying to take care of, right?
Tough. And a toddler, right? You said this is your second baby?
That's my second. And yes, Morgan at that time was 5. So I had a 5-year-old who was still grappling with being not only the only child anymore, right? And then a 4-day-old baby. And at this time, I couldn't take care of her. And I picked up the phone. I called my doctor and said, I'm having a lot of pain. I don't think it's right. And they literally told me, just take a Percocet.
My gosh, I have similar experience. I can't.
Yeah. They said, medicate. And I said, no, this is my second baby. Like, I know what it feels like to have given birth and be on the recovery path. And they said, well, we just think that you need to call us back in a couple of days. If symptoms don't clear, you need to understand that your body is, is going through the healing of having a child. So I waited a day or two. The symptoms did not clear. I started to experience pretty heavy fever and cold sweats. And I at the time was like, oh, maybe it's just my hormones regulating, right? Because that's part of what happens after you have a baby. So I called the doctor back, and they were finally able to see me. And what ensued was pretty amazing. They sent me for a CT scan after I'd been seen in the office, and the doctor said, hey, something really isn't right here. You should be able to move your leg. You shouldn't be experiencing this kind of pain. So they sent me for an abdominal CT scan, and I go to have the CT scan done. They inserted the dye into my body to have it actually happen. I had the scan done, and I walked back out to the car. I get into the car with my husband and my newborn child, and I get an immediate phone call from the doctor's office. they called to let me know that they had spoken with the radiologist already. It had maybe been 10 minutes. And they wanted me to go to the hospital to have a follow-up CT scan while the dye was still active. And they informed me that they would be bringing a wheelchair out in order to take me into the CT scan. So I'm obviously terrified at this point. What is happening to me? What is going on? I get wheeled into the second CT scan inside the hospital, and all of the technicians were gray. They were looking at me like I was literally dying. And I remember at that time, it was the realization of, oh my gosh, did I cause this? Like, I worked literally every second up until the day she was born. You know, did I overdo my body? What is going on? They completed the CT scan. I left the hospital. I then got another call from the doctor that said, hey, come right to our office. And the doctor wants to see you right away, but we don't want you to come up. Her office was like 4 stories in a 4-story building. So I would have had to get out of the car, go in the elevator, and actually take the elevator to her office. And they said, we don't want you to come up to the office. She's going to come down to the car and talk to you.
Oh,
and I was like, what is going on? And I mean, fortunately, the imaging center to the hospital to her office was like in a 3-block distance. So it was very short. So we pull into the parking lot. We called, told them we were there. She proceeds to come down to the vehicle. And as she comes down, I start to open my car door, and she slammed it shut on me. And she said, roll the window down. I said, okay. So I roll the window down, and she proceeded to let me know that I had a blood clot in my ovarian vein. And she looked at me and she said, you are going to die. So I've already sent the admitting paperwork to the hospital. And she looked at my husband and said, you need to take her right now. She's not going home to pack a bag. If you need to go home for her, that's fine. But I've already sent them all the paperwork. And when you get there, she is not to get out of the car. You are to go find a nurse, get a wheelchair, and get her out of the car.
If you guys are listening and not watching, my face, my jaw just hit the ground. This is insane.
Yeah. So they get the wheelchair, they bring it out to the car. And I can remember in that moment, as the nurse was wheeling me through the hallway of the hospital, it was like one of those hallways that's no windows. You know, it's an older hospital, and so there's no windows, no natural light. I'm sitting in this wheelchair terrified because I don't even know what is happening to me right now. And again, did I cause this to myself by working up until the moment?
Right.
So I am in the wheelchair. They're wheeling me into the hospital. It's like tunnel vision because I'm in this long, long hallway, no windows. And it goes on so long that it just kept getting smaller. And all I could think to myself was, I'm going to get back outside. I'm going to get back outside. You know, she had literally just given me a death sentence. And I'm like, no, I'm going to get back outside. And at that time, my faith was not very strong. I didn't have a strong belief in God. I mean, I knew God existed, but I didn't have any faith practice. I'd never been a person who'd been to church. And so in that moment, it was very surreal to me to be like, this isn't how this is going to end. I remember saying to myself in my head, this is not how this is going to end. So after I got checked in and situated in the hospital, the doctors took some blood work from me and realized I actually had a massive pelvic infection from my thighs to my midsection because of the clot cutting off the blood flow. And so they had to put me on very severe IV antibiotics to try to clear the infection because it was taking out my organs.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a very scary time. Obviously, have a newborn baby, right? So the doctors didn't want the baby to be with me in the room. So my husband had to be with her, taking care of her. And at the time I was trying to breastfeed. So I was trying to pump so that she would receive breast milk in the first week or 2. So it was all just a very overwhelmingly emotional moment. Here I am, a new mom, and I can't take care of my baby, which is all we're supposed to do, as you know. And so I ended up spending about 5 days in the hospital. And during that time, they were pumping me full of, Lovenox, which is a blood thinner, to try to clear the clot. It wasn't clearing, and then they were giving me the antibiotics via IV to try to clear the infection. It was a really long 5 days, and I didn't have anyone come to see me, which made me feel longer.
So you didn't have anyone to come see you because they wouldn't allow it, or?
So at that time, that was back in 2010. So of course you were permitted to have people come to visit you.
Okay.
My husband was, trying to take care of a 5-year-old and a newborn.
Yeah, of course. Yes.
Yeah. And my mom who lived fairly close to the hospital was helping him with the 5-year-old. So she was at home with my 5-year-old trying to normalize, my 5-year-old for what was going on so that she wouldn't be terrified, right? That something was going to happen to mom.
Right.
And so she was taking care of the 5-year-old. He was taking care of my newborn. My dad, who is no longer with my mom, lived a couple of hours away, but he was busy with life. And so he didn't make an effort to come down. And I don't feel like everyone understood like how critical the situation was. Yeah. And I'm not a person who is I don't complain. I don't, talk a lot about what the things I go through. So, they had no idea. And I wasn't, in that place, but I went into a very dark depression after that, to be honest.
I'm sure.
Yeah. When I got released from the hospital, the clot itself had not cleared. So I still wasn't able to walk. And so here I am at max birth weight, right? Right after you have a baby.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not able to move. I'd been an athlete most of my life. And I just literally had to sit all day for about 2.5 months until I started to get the ability to walk again. Once the clot started to clear 2 months later, I could kind of start to move. But I got in a very dark place. And at the time, because I didn't have faith, I didn't know how to come out of it. And my husband didn't have any clue as to how to help me with it either. And so, being a mom and not being able to take care of your newborn is a really hard thing. And then on top of that, trying to understand, why people didn't come to help me, right? And this time was really tough. Yeah. So I get into this dark place, and what I realize now looking back is that day in the hallway that I was being wheeled out, God was with me that day. He was there making sure that I knew that was not the last time I was going to see the blue sky. And, in the 2 months that ensued after that, I couldn't recognize anything at that time either. But I know now that I had to be in that dark place. I had to go there because God was looking for me. He wanted me to come back. And the only way for me to come back to him was to be able to get to that low place where you feel so very alone that you just don't even know how to come out of it.
My intuition this morning told me, don't even bother getting ready. Don't even bother getting up. I didn't listen. So if you are watching this video, you see I'm a hot mess because I don't know about you, but this is hitting hard. I can definitely relate to many elements of your story, and thank you for sharing it. And what do you think allowed you to shift into, this was, he had me the whole time. This was a journey that was meant for me, and everything unfolded as it should. What do you think helped you to shift that?
It's interesting. It took me a lot of years actually to get there. So I'm 46 now. I was 32 then. Coming out of the depression, it was like I wanted to make a change in my life no matter what way I had to. And so I actually ended up really pushing I went back to work about 3 months later, once I was finally cleared to do that. And
wow.
Yeah.
I went to work 3 months.
I did. I went back to work. I mean, at that time I was a sales rep for a Fortune 50 company. So the part of the story I didn't tell was that about 3 weeks before I gave birth, my husband actually lost his job. Yes. So I was the sole breadwinner for our family and had been like the majority breadwinner for our marriage up to that point. So that being said, it was like, I have to go back to work. I can't not go back to work. So I went back about 3 months after I gave birth and about a month after my clot cleared. And at that time, there was a job position open in Charlotte, North Carolina. I was living in Chesapeake, Virginia. And I said, I just need change. I need change. Like, I think I was in such a deep, dark place that it was like I didn't realize why I wanted change or why I was feeling the way I was. I just wanted a different environment. It was like that environment had enveloped me so badly that I was like, I just need a change of scenery. And so I ended up taking this job in Charlotte. And when I moved to Charlotte, I kind of got a new lease on life, but I still didn't see God. I didn't see God in those changes. And it took me another 4 or 5 years to actually start opening up my faith. And at that time, what had brought me to it and what had really brought me out of that depression was just being in nature. About a year after I had Avery, I picked up, I was very overweight. So I picked up my tennis racket again. I had played tennis all through high school and part of college. And so getting outside and being in nature really helped me to, kind of deal with the depression I now realize, right, that I had at the time. And so that journey back and me starting to, get my health to a place where I felt good about myself really changed kind of everything. And it started me on this personal development journey. And I think I was 38 probably when I got deep into it. But, I had gone through that job. I had been offered another job in Washington, D.C. about 3 years later. I took that. And when I moved here, it was like, I need to be doing something more for myself. Like, I have to continue to grow. And it's not just about work. It's not just about work. At this time, my kids were, beautiful 3 and 8 years old. And, my little Avery, who, no issues for her at birth, thank goodness. But she was getting bigger. And I was like, I need to continue on my growth journey. So I started at probably really about 38, 39. Yeah.
Wow. I am just blown away by this story. And I just want to once again mention our sponsors because they do support those in the mental health, who are undergoing a mental health journey, Black Aswad Coffee. But what do you think? Do you think that the entire path was what God had envisioned? Or do you think that there was anything that occurred that you were supposed to listen to some nudges prior and you just kind of ignored your intuition? Because that's always my question when stuff like that happens. Was this the journey that was meant, or did I ignore some nudges prior to this that were meant to protect me? What do you think about that?
So I think, in all honesty, that prior to that time, I was just going with the flow of life. Like, I really didn't, I wasn't trying necessarily to control anything. Like, I'd had a lot of things happen to me over the course of my life that was like, oh, I guess this is what I'm supposed to do next. Oh, I guess this is where I'm supposed to be. I sort of accepted the journey of life as what was being handed to me. And I just didn't make a whole lot of very cognitive decisions about what was going on. I had been, Morgan, my older daughter, was actually with my first husband. And so that we met in college, and it was like I went through this journey, and then all of a sudden woke up one day and was like, oh, I don't think I picked right. Like, this isn't where I need to be. We had a very rough relationship. We just were both very strong-headed and couldn't find common ground. And so
I don't think I picked right.
I don't think I picked right. I don't. He's a lovely man. I just I picked right for me. And so we had been married a very short time, but he was a flow of life part of the equation. And then my second husband, who I had my second daughter with, he was also a flow of life equation. We had worked together, and that was how we met. And it was kind of just like, oh, I guess this is just how it's supposed to be. Yeah. So when you ask me that question, like, did you feel the nudges? I don't feel like I ever went against any of the nudges I had, but I also wasn't aware that I was just going with the flow.
Got it.
Yeah. And so, when I got to be the age where I started to really have this awareness and just started to learn more about me and who I am as an essential person and all of that, I understand now that my journey, this is how it was meant to be.
Mm-hmm.
I have always been a person who loves to help other people, who likes to problem solve with people, who is there for people. People meet me and they tell me their entire life story within like the first 5 minutes, even though they have no idea who I am.
I love that.
They just feel very comfortable with me. And so I know that the journey I've had is intentional so that I can go through some of these traumas and hardships in order to help people walk their path.
Something that has come to mind, a question that I just want to jump back to. Whenever you felt that, you weren't getting, not that you felt, but you weren't getting visitors, you were in the hospital alone. And obviously we understand why your husband couldn't and your mom couldn't. But did you ever express that with any of your support system of, hey, I felt like I didn't feel supported there?
Yes, that's probably a whole nother episode.
Oh, yeah? Tell me a little bit. Give me a sneak peek to the next time you're here.
Yeah, I mean, I will say I am a very sensitive person. It's one of my spiritual gifts, both to what other people are going through and then also to what I'm going through myself. Yeah. And when I expressed how I was feeling, I got a lot of, oh, I don't know why you feel that way. It was a lot of invalidation on my actual feelings. Looking back at it now, I recognize that the people surrounding me in my life at the time, my own parents, are not at a place in their own growth where they allow emotion to exist, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Growing up in my teenage years, like if I was feeling some type of way about something that happened, I would get this world's tiniest violin. I would get that from my parents, right? That's how they dealt with any emotion I had.
Yeah.
So at the age of 32, it really wasn't any different. So they didn't understand the internal struggle I was having. I either didn't do a good job of communicating how I felt in a way that they didn't feel attacked. I mean,
right.
That dynamic was tough. I tried to voice it, and it's taken me a lot of years of my own awareness to understand where my parents are, what they actually have been through in their own lives, and why they handle life the way that they do. And neither of them, my dad probably more so than my mom, but their own personal awareness journey is not very lengthy. Like, it's just not. My mom prefers to just kind of like not deal with things and move past them. And my dad in his older age is kind of starting to have a little bit more of awareness about the impact he's had on people in his life. But yes, it's I love that I can now see it and step away from it.
Good.
Not feel connected to it in any way. And I know it's not anything that I caused. It's just what they're going through on their own journey.
It's one of the, what is the book? The 4 Rules. Why can't I think of the name?
The 4 Agreements.
What? Yeah, it's the most infamous book of all time. I can't think of the title, but it's one of the agreements, right? Don't take anything personally, good or bad. It's all everybody's, in their own stuff. And I remember having those feelings in times when I was in the hospital about just some of my closest friends, like my baby almost died, I almost died, and I haven't heard from them. And so then I had the realization of, oh my gosh, something must be going on in their lives. Like, and sure enough, 2 of my closest friends that I hadn't really heard from, shit had hit the fan in their lives simultaneously, and they were just trying to survive. And I was glad that kind of like in prayer, God was able to say like, well, they might be going through something too, and so it's good that you were able to recognize that in your parents' journey. They have their own programming and healing to do, and it has nothing to do with you, which is sad, right? It's hard whenever it's your parents, because you would want them to have it all together, but it's also comforting that you turned out as great as you did, right? And they, you appreciate them for who they are, right? And they did the best that
Yeah, they provided me with the tools to become who I am today.
Right.
Regardless of whether it was in a positive way or a negative way, they still gave me the gifts of being the person that I am today.
Right.
I think the challenge for most of us is that we identify as our parents for the
Mm-hmm.
first, 8, 9 years of our life. We
Mm-hmm.
draw our identification from who they are as people.
Mm-hmm.
And some of us forget that we are not actually our parents, and it takes
Mm-hmm.
many years to release ourselves of that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I love that you brought up the Four Agreements. That was one of the first books that I read actually on my development journey. Like once I really dove in and was like, hey, I used to love to read. I read mostly fiction books for probably the first, 35 years of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I started this journey, it was like I would just voraciously read everything. And that was actually one of the first books that I
That's
started.
one of the main things that supports my own mental health. It's kind of a non-negotiable for how busy
Mhm.
the day is. 10 minutes of divine truth. Whatever, book. One for the Four Agreements is one. One of my favorite ones is A Happy Pocket Full of Money.
That's another great one.
Um, what is the Game of Life and How to Play It? That's a great one. Which both of those titles are absolutely not what you would think the book is
Yeah,
like, by
yeah,
the way.
yeah,
It's Not Your Money, The Big Leap, just
yeah.
10 minutes of one of those. And I've even sat in therapy sessions and stuff has come up where I'm like, well, that's a very philosophical question because, I don't believe in the limit of time. And I've even had therapists like, what?
They're like, I've not had anybody think this deeply about this. You're going to challenge me now, aren't you,
You can
Marta?
tell that they haven't even felt that divine truth yet, right? And
Yeah.
so I just think if you're listening to the show and you're going through something tough, or you have in the past and you're not sure how to come out of it, I would say picking up one of those books
Mhm.
would be tremendously helpful.
Yeah.
What are some books that you would recommend on this kind of journey that you went through,
I
other
was
than the Four Agreements?
Yeah, early on in my journey, one of the books that really helped me was How to Do the Work by Dr. Nicole LePera. It is a great book about digging into exactly that. You are not the identity of your parents, and what conditioning you had while you were growing up, you need to be able to release yourself from. And so it gives you some steps through that, and she talks through her own journey in that way. Um, I will say that was probably one of the hardest parts of the work that I've done over the last 4 or 5 years, because at the time I started it, the relationship that I had with both of my parents was very rocky. I just really, I literally looked at and judged every move that they would make with regard to my relationship with them, instead of just meeting them where they were, instead of just
Mhm.
accepting them as human beings and saying they are human and they're going to mess things up. And
Mhm.
none of us get a parenting handbook, and none of us are going to do it perfect. Um,
Yeah.
but that book in particular was a great one. Another one that I one of my biggest influences in the growth in my life is Ed Milet. I've had the opportunity to coach with him one-on-one and spend good quality time with him. He wrote a book called The Power of One More, which is an amazing book about just doing one more thing, one more step, one more action, one more activity in order to really change your life and the belief in yourself that you're capable of doing more.
Mhm.
That's another one that was a super impactful book for me. I've probably read 200 books in the last 3 years. Like legitimately,
Yeah, I believe it.
those are
Yeah.
full.
Wow, that's a lot. I mean, I'm averaging one or two a week, probably one. Let's be real. Like one, well, it's typically one fiction and one nonfiction per week, but um it's like I said, it's life saving. It's the self help a daily for 10 minutes, or self growth rather, and then on Sundays it's all fictional novels. And one of my favorite authors is Corey Wamsley, which Angela and
Yes.
I both know. She's our publisher, and she's phenomenal because they're fictional novels, but throughout them, there's the divine truth sprinkled in, and the
Love it.
character's usually going through some self-growth
Mm-hmm.
journey, and whether you're past it or not, it's always a nice reminder of the foundation. So I just love her novels, and I can't wait for her to come out. I'll have to tell her I gave her a little plug on the show, but it's
Well, we're going
comforting
to
to
see
hear,
her today. We'll
and we're
see
gonna
her.
see her
We'll
today.
talk to
Yeah,
her.
we'll
Yes,
let
there
her
you go.
know.
Yeah.
But at but it's comforting everything you're saying, because I have 7 kids, and one of them is the oldest is 17 and the youngest is 10 months. I'm a much different Marta. I've
Yeah.
gone through not all the healing, right? We all have stuff that comes up every day that we continue to work through, but I've gone through significant healing and coaching and mentorship, and know so much more about the divine truth from and parenting, and how I
Yeah.
parented back then to how I parent now. I mean, it was almost 2 decades ago. With him, I was very stern, strict,
Mm-hmm.
um, just angry. Honestly, the way that I
Mm-hmm.
would be so strict with him when he was 2, I would never speak to my 2-year-old like this now. And I've had to, I found that what was helpful is just apologize and own up to it, and don't make excuses for it, and don't devalue when they're upset. And quite
Mm-hmm.
frankly, he has a temper, and he is a very good person. He's has a good soul, good spirit, and I feel like we're so close. He sends me reels about his moms being their best friends and good things like that. Sometimes he doesn't watch the whole thing, and it gets kind of embarrassing for him, because I'm like, I don't think you watched this whole thing. I don't think you wanted to send this to your mom. But there's moments where he loses his temper, and he's angry, and he's like, why do you think I'm like this? I'm like, I know why you're like this, and I'm so sorry, and I'm just telling you now, let's get ahead of it now, because you don't want to do this to your kids, do you? And he's like, no. So so it's comforting to hear stories of when you felt like maybe your parents were imperfectly perfect as themselves, and you accept them who
Mm-hmm.
they are, but you still are a phenomenal person, creating beautiful things in the world, and just being a good steward of God's truth throughout it all. So I appreciate that. So Angela, I want you to share more about what you have to offer to those listeners who want more of your energy, but I do want to also give a plug with why we're connected. Now we are working on an anthology, and actually we're going to be releasing the title soon, and it's so good.
Mm-hmm.
Oh heck, I think I'm just gonna release it now for the first time
Do
ever.
it. Do it.
It's called Course Correction. Nope, it's called Course Corrected. All the stories are about women who were on a path, and the path needed to be corrected through some
Mm.
hardship. And we're working on the cover now. And Angela, will you be telling this story or another story?
This story will be a part of it. Yes.
Okay, awesome. I'm so glad to hear it. And I'll be sharing my story about, having a newborn, and my mother passing, and the inability to be there for both of them at the same time, and the journey that I had to go through there. But I do want you, Angela, to share what you have going on right now that those listening or watching could potentially take part of to get more into your world.
So I actually am in the process of launching a new mastermind program. I have a once a year meeting that I do called Evolve, which is for business owners and business leaders that help them grow. So not only it's about understanding that your personal development and your personal growth is really the success and growth of your business, and how you journey through that and with your employees. So what I have started actually is upon request of the last 3 years of those attendees is like, hey, why are you not doing this the whole year? Why are you not offering us, more beyond just this event? Because it's so impactful and so great. So I have opened up and am launching a mastermind that goes through effectively the steps I took in my own journey. So we start with self-study, self-discovery, and each month is themed. There's 2 virtual calls a month and several options. There's a free option for those who are just looking for, hey, book recommendations, prompts every week, discussion about self-study and how to develop yourself in order to help grow the people around you. So that actually starts on May 15th, and it's in a program called Heartbeat. And you can find information about it if you follow me on Instagram or Facebook.
I saw you sharing it on Facebook. I'd love to start with the free community and get in on that energy
Yeah.
and go from there over time. And I'd love to share my offer um, that I have just launched. My once a year retreats that I host on my property. It's called the Wild Child Experience. Will be, some. There's going to be some bougie glamping, but also some infused in nature, wildflower picking, some kayaking, some hiking, some guided journaling. And this is for women who have a lot going on in their lives. Things are moving and they just are seeking just some peace within, some
Mhm.
connection to their higher self, some moments to be present within and with God, and so that they can have clarity on next steps forward. And I am also a financial rep. I help families find hidden money in your lives, how to grow it, and how to protect it and prosper.
Love it.
Any last words, Angela, before we disconnect?
Just grateful for meeting you and you having me on today. I'm so excited for the book and the launch and all of the things that are going to come from this relationship in the future.
Me too. And thanks again to our sponsors, Black Aswad Coffee. We couldn't do it without you. In fact, we really wouldn't be doing the show without you as the sponsor. And so I am grateful for them being here and giving us this platform to share these stories and inspire and empower and help others. Until next time, everyone. Bye.